Hey there, and welcome to Retirement Reimagined. I'm Tiffany Nyiri, Senior Living Specialist, and this is the podcast where we flip the script on senior living. Whether you're a retiree ready to take on a new adventure or just curious about how to make the most of your golden years, you're in the right place. Join me and our amazing expert guests as we dive into everything from hitting the road in an RV, getting your financial ducks in a row, exploring the perks of a reverse mortgage, or just figuring out how to link that smartphone to your car. We're here to inspire, inform, and give you practical tips to live your best retired life. So buckle up, tune in, and let's reimagine what retirement can truly be. I have heard horror stories about. Welcome to Retirement Reimagined. We have got a very special guest today, Karina Loyo. Loyo. And that's fun to say, actually.
Yeah, it's like yo-yo. It rhymes with yo-yo.
Yeah, or YOLO. You only live once.
Something like that.
She has got so many different credentials and things that she does that help the people. Caring heart, empathy heart, as well as brain smart. So, Karina, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing lately, because I know you have some exciting things coming up.
Oh, Tiffany, thank you so much for having me here with you. I really appreciate that. So, I guess a little bit about myself for your audience is I am a gerontologist. So, my doctorate is in health promotion and gerontology from the University of Texas. I also have an MBA, and I am the author of the Longevity Blueprint for Health, Wealth, and Purpose, Embracing the Rest of Your Life. So, I have worked with older adults for a really long time. I kind of accidentally ended up there. My mom got a phone call from my grandfather asking if we could move back home to help with my grandmother who had Alzheimer's,
Hmm.
and we could not. We at the time lived in Mexico City, and I was graduating from high school. So I said, I'm about to graduate from high school, so why don't I go up and help grandma and grandpa? I had a really close relationship with them, so I thought that'd be a great idea. And well, I got there. I was 18 when I arrived, and everything was pretty good helping granddad with grandma, the typical things that were more kind of intimate, like bathing and, help in the bathroom and so on. And then about 3 months into being there, my grandfather had a stroke.
Oof.
Yes. And 3 days after that, I turned 19. So that was my welcome to college and caregiving all at once.
Very difficult,
Yeah.
and you almost at that time don't know how difficult it's going to be. Is that correct in
Oh,
saying?
I had absolutely no idea at all what I had gotten myself into or what the experience was going to be like. And, I'm sure I didn't do everything perfect because, I was 19. What do you know? I mean, I can tell you when my grandfather had a stroke, for some crazy reason, I had come home that day in between classes because I had like a 2 hour time frame. Normally, I would stay on campus and I would, do some homework or, be a teenager with my friends. But that day I came home and I decided I'm going to take a little nap. Well, instead of going to the back bedroom, I decided to do this in the sunroom, which is in the middle of the house. Well, because of where I was, I suddenly heard somebody say, "Help." And I woke up. That woke me up. And then I'm like, oh, that was weird. And then I heard it again. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound good. So I looked for where the voice was coming from. It came from the bathroom. My grandfather had had a stroke in the bathroom. And he actually fallen between the toilet and the wall, and his legs were across the door. Well, you
Oh,
know, I'm 19, right? Or almost 19. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get in there. I got to get him out. How am I going to do this? And so I was able to open the door just enough so I could get my hands in and help prop his legs up. But oh my
oh.
gosh, I mean, the things that I did, I should have called 911, but I had no idea that that's what I really should have done. Because at 19, what do you know? Nobody prepared me for this. And, that's the reality is nobody, even regardless of, if you're 50 or 60 and you're dealing with a loved one who's suddenly having all these aging related things happen to them, nobody prepares you for it. And so when I was 19, nobody ever told me what to do. And so that's one of the reasons why I decided I needed to write the book, is because there isn't one source of everything that you need to know in order to be able to really have an idea of what it is to expect, or even how to prepare yourself for what's going to happen later on in life.
And even a spouse of someone that has Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that would want to read your book.
It has very
Yes.
valuable
Okay.
information in it. Yeah. So
Yes.
it isn't just for people who may end up with Alzheimer's or dementia. It
Okay.
really is targeted at anybody who is thinking about retirement or has already entered retirement.
Mm.
How do we ensure that we're taking care of our health, that we have all of our, as they say, ducks in a row, to make sure that we have all the documents that we need, that we have an asset protection team, that we've really considered what is it that we want to happen should anything happen to us. So, like when my grandfather had the stroke, one of the things that happened is he ended up with a speech impediment.
Mm.
Well, I was close enough to him that I could understand everything he was saying, although sometimes he had to say it twice and sometimes I was wrong, but I could understand, right? But there are many times that people don't understand. And so if you can't communicate and say, hey, I like my coffee black, or I like 2 lumps of sugar and cream
Mm.
on it, then you're not going to get your coffee served to you the right way. And I know that's a very minor thing, but what if they start serving you food that you've never liked because you can't communicate that? And so really it's about helping you think through the whole process of that and have these conversations. And Tiffany, a lot of people think that some of these things, when you start thinking about them, they feel like, oh, well, that's going to be knocking at my door because I've put all these things in place. That's not true.
No.
Here's the reality. A lot of these things we're talking about, they're just aging 101 things, meaning they should happen once we turn 18. We're adults, right? We need medical power of attorneys. We need, to let people know what our desires are. And we're thinking that, oh, those are just things that old people do. No, they're things that every adult should be doing. And one of the messages that I try to give people a lot is, if you do not plan ahead, then you may end up with one medical crisis that becomes a generational financial crisis. Because if you end up not planning ahead, that's exactly what I've seen happen over and over and over to people. And then the other thing that may end up happening is that you may end up in a situation in which you end up putting your loved ones in the position to making decisions over your life, that they're going to wonder for the rest of their lives, did I do the right thing for mom or dad?
Yeah.
That is so important. So instead, take some time, write down, think about what it is that you want to happen to you. Should you have a stroke? Should you not be able to communicate? Make those decisions for you ahead of time. Share that with your loved ones so that they don't have to wonder for the rest of their life, did I do what mom or dad would have wanted me to do with them? I think that's so important.
It's so important. And, as an adult child, you think, golly, am I overstepping? Because a lot
Mhm.
of our parents don't want to talk about finances. They don't want to talk about these
Yep.
things. But little by little, if you start having a conversation, or just start asking a little question here and another little question here, or hey, um, that would kind of bring them into a chat. And we just
Right.
want to chat. We just want to
Mhm.
start off with a chat.
Yes, and one of the strategies that I'm going to be putting in the second book that I write,
Mm,
which will be for the adult children
okay.
who are
Oh,
helping
perfect.
their parents, is one of the things that your parents have always done for you is given you advice. And so the best way to start this conversation with your parents is say, "Hey, I'm thinking about my own situation and I want to get my ducks in a row
Mm.
so that my children don't have to make these
Oh, that's
decisions for
so
me."
good.
Right? So, Mom, Dad, what advice do you have for me? Oh, by the way, what have you done? You see? And now it's not threatening to have that conversation because now it's all about you. And oh my gosh, from a parent's point of view, it's like, oh, my child is asking me this. Gee, I haven't done this for them. Oh, I had never thought that I should need to be concerned about the fact that they may have to make some decisions that may weigh on them for the rest of their lives. But now that you've introduced it that way, they're going to go away from that conversation thinking about it. And hopefully, they will be willing to continue that conversation with you and really be able to put the documents together that'll help you and empower you when that time comes. If it ever comes, because for some people it may never come.
Yeah. And that is so good because short story, I used to tell my kids, I wanted to tell them a story or I wanted to have a lesson. And I would say, guess what I heard from another mom today? And I would tell them whatever I felt like telling them. But it
Right.
came from some other mom. So they were like, oh, what happened?
Yeah, exactly.
I got it in.
Exactly. Well, and like, for example, when my father had his stroke,
Mm.
okay, he was living in Mexico City still. We're all living, well, one of my brothers is living in Mexico, but the rest of us are here when it happened. And their rules are so different. I mean, here you can have a DNR order, do
Mm.
not resuscitate, right? And in Mexico, they have to resuscitate. It is
Oh.
against the Constitution for a doctor not to attempt to resuscitate you.
Oh.
Yeah. And so you cannot pull the plug on anybody in Mexico. You can make that decision here. But it should hopefully be a decision that, you made for yourself and not put your children in that situation to make for you.
That's the toughest one.
Yeah, and in my father's case, it turns out we didn't know it the first day, but by the fifth day, we had found out that he actually had his stroke had severed his brain from his brainstem. So he's essentially brain dead, but
Mm.
he's still alive. Now they've told us we can't disconnect him. We can't pull the plug. And they have to try to resuscitate even afterwards. So can you imagine the anxiety and all the thoughts and that went through our whole families
Yeah.
at that moment, right? Here we're so lucky that we're able to make those choices and be able to have a voice in those choices for ourselves. And so I really advocate for people to think about what is best for them and to make those decisions. Now, luckily, we found out, and everybody showed up 2 hours later, said goodbye to my dad, and 13 minutes after the last goodbye, he left us. So it was beautiful. But it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it can be months, right? So
Yeah.
we want to empower
Agonizing
our
months.
family. Yes, yeah. Yeah, well, and then when it comes to things like dementia, it can take years, right? And that's another thing is that a lot of people uh, don't really know how to measure what stage their family member really is in. And
Mm.
they don't know how to have that conversation
Ooh.
with the professionals that could help them understand. Is this going to be something that we're looking at 2 years, 3 months, or a decade, right? Because you
Mm.
don't want to end up with caregiver burnout because you decided, oh, I've got to spend every second of my life with mom because she's got, 3 months to live when in fact she's going to live 11 years, you know? So it is really important to consider the fact that you too, as a caregiver, have a life and you have to balance your work, your children, your own life and friendships and your health because you've got to make time to exercise if you want to be healthier later in life with
Hmm.
taking care of your loved ones.
Yes, and I think that's the struggle for most people because they don't know who's going to sit with mom while I take my kids to soccer, or that sort of thing. And it takes a village, unfortunately. And if you don't have a village, then you need to make one. You,
Right.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it may be that mom doesn't need to have anybody sit with them at the moment, right? It may be that they're okay to be alone. It just may be that your expectations of what life should be like for your mom are
Mm-hmm.
different than what she wants them to be. Like you may want to drag her along to come and go to that soccer game, right? But she may be much more happier if she just did that word search puzzle, you know? And so
Okay.
you have to ask the questions and you have to honor the answers that they give you, and it is okay.
Yeah, and it's a struggle. It's an interesting balance, and that you're probably never going to get. I mean, is there such a thing as balance, really? Work life balance, all that stuff. So,
Well, I laugh because for years I worked with people and trying to help them find that work life balance. And now we're adding this whole other thing called the caregiver role, right? Which I don't know why I didn't think about it before because my goodness, that's where I started. I've kind of always been in a caregiver role, but I guess when you're 19, you really don't think about yourself as a caregiver. And speaking of that, the AARP did a study where they came up and said, "Oh, we have 53 million caregivers in the United States that are unpaid. So their family members or friends that are
wow,
providing care, and they're
53 million.
53 million, yes, and they're providing about 600 billion dollars in care annually that is not paid. Now, um, the Carter Institute for Caregivers believes that that number is grossly underrepresented because a lot of people, when you ask them, are you caregiving? They say no. And then you start asking them, well, tell me about when you get together with your mom. And they're like, oh, well, I take her grocery shopping and I help her cook a meal and I go ahead and help her with the laundry. Okay, you're caregiving and you just didn't realize that you were caregiving. And so that's
Oh,
important.
yeah.
And so
Okay.
they estimate that actually it is probably closer to 88 to 100 million caregivers who are providing
Wow.
some type of care. Yeah.
Wow.
hmm And with the aging population, that's just going to become more of a norm for the majority of people.
Yeah, and caregiving, not everybody can do it. You're just some people are, I don't want to say made that way,
hmm
but are better at it. Because I mean, my mom just had a fall 5 weeks ago, and I am much better at caregiving than my sister, but my sister's much better at the insurance and the paperwork and the doctor's visits. So that's a good balance in our family.
Right. And that's important because you do have to find different roles for the different people in your family. And we had the same kind of thing. My sister was really good at doing all the scheduling of the appointments and you know, I would go with her. My brother was really good at taking her out to socialize. And then we had one brother that lived out of the country. So he really didn't do very much. And that just is the way that it is
Yeah.
sometimes. But it's important that if you are the one that is taking that primary role, to be able to ask your siblings for help in the different areas and also to be able to communicate effectively with them and not have them do things like, well, have you thought about doing this? Or why aren't you doing that? And then it becomes like, okay, now we're going to rip the family apart because we're not communicating effectively. And we have to understand that sometimes the siblings that are doing that are coming from well, this is my way to contribute. And unfortunately, the way that they come off is more like mandating how you should be doing all the work rather
Yeah.
than I'm suggesting these things and I really wish that I could be there. And sometimes it's really just about having that heart to heart talk with them and being able to say, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm feeling this as an attack on the way that I'm handling mom or dad. And I don't think you intend it that way, but that's the way I'm feeling about it. So, can we talk about that to try to lay some ground rules around this communication and then maybe how we may be able to collaborate on this better? I think a lot of the, human to human interactions, it's just so complicated. We try to communicate clearly and then sometimes we unintentionally say the wrong thing, or but it gets heard wrong, right? It wasn't intended that way. So it's important to be able to have the relationships, to have these conversations and be more open about them.
And communication is a very difficult thing for a lot of people. School doesn't teach you how to communicate properly. I mean,
Correct.
basic school, unless
Hmm.
you take specialized classes like you did. It does not make you think, golly, what I just said made them feel really bad inside. And it didn't
Right.
even dawn on us because we just said it.
Right.
So exactly what you were saying is communication and relaying your feelings back after someone says something back to you in a calm, organized way.
Yes. Yeah.
And, yeah,
Well,
because
and reminding people of what the mutual purpose is, right? I mean, the mutual
mm,
purpose is to provide the best care for mom or dad or Aunt Jeannie. And that is what we need to focus on. We don't need to focus on attacking each other's deficiencies or having these, fights. There's no reason for that. That doesn't serve anybody.
right.
And so being able to put our heads together and come up with the best strategy is going to be really important. And then I think a lot of what people need to understand is that most of this caregiving really needs to be more of a supervisory type of role and making arrangements for them to have coordinated care given by other people, because you do have your own children and you do have your work and career, that if you drop to part-time or you decide, well, I'm not going to take that promotion because that's
Mm,
going to make things more hectic and I need to be there for my loved one. Well, okay, what's that financial opportunity cost for you and saving for your own retirement? And every year with inflation, it's going to be more and more expensive. And you don't want to set yourself up to be deficient on your own, retirement financing. So you have to have that balance there. It's not a selfish thing, it's just a real life thing. And you have to be able to have those conversations. Because if you do end up in a situation where you have to contribute to mom or dad, the other thing about it is probably not all the siblings are making the same amount of money, or each household isn't making the same amount. So sometimes to expect everyone to contribute the same amount is not a fair thing either.
well, and me being, I'm in the finance world, so I advocate for reverse mortgages specifically for people that are need based,
Hmm.
but we do a
Yep.
lot of strategic as well. But this would be something where this would be a beautiful strategy to keep our family in the house if that is something that they want to do, or if we need to fund one of the parents in a facility or something to that nature to help them. So um, this is a beautiful, beautiful strategy. I keep
Hmm.
using that word, but it's just so many beautiful options that you can use when, instead of taking from your own pocket as a child,
Hmm.
I don't want to, I don't want to be selfish, but I have a family and my
Yep.
family needs this money.
Hmm.
And the house has all of this equity, which of
Right.
course will be ours in the future. But for now, mom needs care.
Exactly.
Mom needs care that's going to be pricey,
Yeah.
or I need to quit my job. Well, that's just a no brainer to me. I don't want to quit my job.
Well, and most people can't quit their jobs.
Yeah.
And some people have taken early retirement to be
Mm,
able to do this caregiving. And then when you think about that and see how much they've, that opportunity cost of what they didn't make, right? Not only the toll that that caregiving took on the individual, because there is a toll that takes on an individual when you're caregiving. And we talked a little bit about the stats on caregiving, but what we didn't talk about is what the average caregiving looks like. So the average caregiving is 27.3 hours a week. it's 5 more years people have been taking care of their loved ones. So, over a third of people have spent 5 or more years caring for their loved one. And so when you look at that, this is not a, 1 or 2 year thing, which, most of us can do 1 or 2 years. When you're looking at 5 to 10 years, this is exhausting. It's not sustainable. We have to come up with some better solutions. And we have to be able to know when to implement the solutions. Because if we start spending that 30 hours a week with mom when she really doesn't need it, then we're going to be burned out for when she does need that from us.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm going back 5 weeks ago to when my mom had her fall. We did not need to be with her 24/7, but we all took turns. But
Uh-huh.
I'm going back and I'm hearing what you're saying. And I don't want to say we burnt ourselves out, but it was not needed.
Right. Well, but it was short term, right? And it was a response because it was, a dramatic instant event. And that's kind of that whole thing about making sure that one medical crisis does not become a generational financial crisis. So we have to plan ahead. We have to think about, okay, if there's this much care needed, is that short term care? Or is that long term care? Is this a true turn in the person's health that's going to affect the length of their life dramatically? And, maybe we're going to lose them in 6 months. Okay, well, then maybe we do want to spend more time with them. But if it's a fall that maybe affected them and they need help for 2, 3 days or a week, and then they're able to go back to kind of normal living slowly, maybe with a little support, but they're going to be around for another 10 years, then we definitely don't have to be quitting our jobs at this point in time. And so we're going to have to be more educated and more discerning and really look at it more strategically. And this is where I really think that planning comes in. And that's the reason why I wrote the book, is because I want people to really start thinking more critically about these things. Because when we're in that moment of crisis, and Tiffany, you can confirm this, when you were in that moment of crisis with your mom and her fall, and you all decided she needed that much attention and care, you were responding to that moment, that crisis. And if you had had a little bit more of a plan and maybe thought of some questions like, hey, I need to ask the doctor, is this something that's going to impact the remainder of her life? Or is this just a temporary thing where she needs a little bit of more care at this time? And maybe even have identified a home health agency that could come in for those 2 or 3 days, maybe in the evening so that y'all could go home and sleep. Those types of things can all be planned out ahead of time. But when you're in that moment of crisis, it's just your brain just doesn't function that way. And
Yes.
it's not that we're not intelligent, it's that we're emotional beings and we respond emotionally. So our answers are emotional, and sometimes emotional is irrational. So it's important to be able to discern and know that this happens, and it happens to all of us. I mean, we did the same thing when my dad died. We're like, oh my gosh, mom's going to die next. But she lived 11 years, right? I mean, but we moved her in with me right away, right? And she lived with me for 5 years, and then she was able to go to independent living. And there were lots of things in between that we had to deal with, but sometimes we have to slow down a little bit, and we have to plan ahead, and that really makes us all more successful because there's so many moving parts.
Well, and that last summary that you just did for us is good for our listeners. And the whole thing has been just really good because this is real life.
It is.
This is real life. Everybody with parents will go through this.
Yeah, in real life is messy. It's messy, and we do the best that we can at the moment. But for those of us that have been able to take just a few minutes to think about how do I really need to approach this? What are some key questions that I need to ask? I think it'll make a world of difference in how you respond and how much stress you feel at the moment of this crisis.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for that. Is there anything you would like to leave the listeners that we didn't already cover?
Yes, I will say one thing.
Okay.
The most important thing that you can do to improve your independence as you age is to really focus and carve out time for yourself, specifically your physical self. So, exercising, specifically weight training, and eating sufficient protein is going to totally transform your life. And if you do this every day, or most days of the week, you will find that you're going to be aging much healthier than the majority of people around you. Because we do know from the people who get into their 90s and are still running around looking like they just turned 62, it's not just genetics. It really is those lifestyle things that they did. And a lot of it has to do with the muscle mass that they have coming into those later years in life.
That is great, because a lot of people think that weight training is for the younger crowd, and it is not.
It is not. No, go look up on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, your favorite social media, put older adults or 80-year-old athletes, and you will find so much inspiration. And it is true. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing what happens if you just continue moving and you do so strategically.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for joining us, Karina. I just love everything you have to say, your books. I can't wait for your new book to come out. We will put a link for the book that Karina currently has. And then do you have a link so we can watch when the new one comes out?
Yeah, if you just go to longevityblueprint.org, I will be posting and updating things there.
Okay. Longevityblueprint.org. Got it. Okay, and we'll put all of those connections at the bottom. We will put a website for Dr. Karina, and if you guys have any questions or kudos after you read her book, she would love to hear those. So thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tiffany. I really appreciate it. I hope the information was helpful to your listeners, and I am excited about helping people live happier, healthier, and longer lives.
Thank you, Karina.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Retirement Reimagined. I hope today's episode gave you some great tips to elevate your retirement. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found our discussion helpful, please leave a review. It helps others find the podcast too. Curious about how to unlock new financial opportunities in retirement? I'd love to chat and explore how we can make your golden years even brighter. Until next time, I'm Tiffany Nyiri. Keep reimagining.